I am Onicka Jones with this special edition of the Public's Interest with President David Granger, who is attending the 71st session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. The president discussed a number of issues regarding his engagement at the UN and the Guyana's green agenda.
Sir, you spoke extensively at the UN General Assembly about Guyana being a green state. What impacts would that have on the local economy should we get more international support?
Well, first of all, we must not see the forest as something we cut down. Simply by preserving the forest, we would earn because we are part of the lungs of the earth. And countries which generate a lot of carbon dioxide and other harmful emissions would pay us to make sure that our forests remain intact. So just by keeping the forest is an economic benefit. In addition to that, as you know, the forest is part of our biodiversity. It's the habitat for some of our animals. Those animals are the bases for ecotourism and other forest industries. People are now discovering a lot of chemicals could be extracted from forest products. So we don't have to use synthetic or artificial chemicals, we can use natural chemicals. Employment for young people as guides, as people running enterprises in ecotourism. Education, young scholars could go into the hinterland and learn about botany, zoology, biology, so that when I speak of a green economy, it is not just one aspect. It's about forestry, it's about preserving our biodiversity, it's about protected areas, it's about ecotourism. It's a whole range of new occupations. So when I speak about that green economy, that's what I mean. It's a total new experience. It does not mean that we abandon everything else we've been doing, but this is a new chapter in our economic development.
On that note, you made reference to Guyana's strides towards becoming a green economy, and it's been somewhat hampered by the border issue, the border controversy. You referenced a lot the fact that you are not speaking of the Venezuelan people and their economic crisis at the moment, but more so what has happened over the past 50 years and more.
Yes.
What do you hope to achieve out of these meetings, given that you've been, for the past year and a half, you've been pitching that this is hampering Guyana's progress?
It is a fact that Venezuela has used its military clout to behave aggressively. Even as I speak, there have been reports of incidents of harassment by things called sindicatos, which simply means syndicates. Persons in the Wenamu and Cuyuni River, that is in Western Guyana, have been harassed, sometimes by uniformed personnel. But in addition to that, there is a lot of evidence that Venezuelan government has scared off investors by writing to foreign embassies, accusing them of trespassing on their territory if they invest in Guyana. So no shareholder wants to know that the corporation in which he or she is invested is likely to be thrown out. So we don't know what we're losing. In addition to that, there are more great possibilities. There are about half a dozen firms which are conducting offshore exploration for petroleum. And if they feel that the country is vulnerable to attack, as has happened in October 2013 when the Anadarko was driven out by the Venezuelan corvette, again they'll be more hesitant to come and invest in Guyana. So it's very important that when we speak of this green economy, we give the investors a clear understanding and impression that Guyana is safe and secure. And nothing's going to happen to hinder their production and repatriation of profits. Guyana must be a safe place. And as long as Venezuela continues to threaten us, it will not create an impression in the minds of investors that we are safe.
Okay, Mr. President, even as Guyana await a meeting on Saturday with the UN Secretary General, I know CARICOM as a body is meeting with him tomorrow. What are some of the issues that will be raised at that meeting?
Well, the major issue as far as Guyana is concerned is the question of territorial security. As you know, when I was inaugurated in 26th of May last year, 2015, that was the date that Venezuela chose to promulgate this decree. And that decree offended other Caribbean states. And the Caribbean community in July at the summit in Bridgetown called upon Venezuela to withdraw that decree, and it did so. So this is because the Venezuelan decree destabilized the whole Eastern Caribbean by threatening it with losing some of the exclusive economic zone. So that is certainly one of the major issues to be raised, the security of Guyana. Belize also has a very serious problem with Guatemala. Guatemala claims all of Belize. And these are two important matters that will be raised with the Secretary General. CARICOM, of course, the entire Caribbean basin is what you can call the fourth frontier of the United States. And in speaking with the United States, we gave them the assurance. I met Mr. Thomas Shannon, Assistant Secretary of State, a few days ago when I came into New York. And we gave him the assurance that we are collaborators in ensuring that the Caribbean remains a zone of peace. So these are some of the issues. As I said, we've already had a meeting with Mr. Thomas Shannon, and the Caribbean foreign ministers will be furthering that discourse when they meet tomorrow.
Mr. President, in keeping with Onicka's question, I just wanted to ask about your assessment of how the United Nations has supported small island and developing states like those found in the Caribbean.
The most important support is evidenced on the tenure of Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Of course, it's nothing new, but the fact is that global warming, the rising sea levels threaten mostly the small island developing states, not only in the Caribbean but also in the Pacific. And the United Nations is critical to that process. I am convinced that without the efforts of Mr. Ban Ki-moon, without COP21, we would not have gotten so far so fast. But there's genuine concern now for the safety and the security of small island developing states. And Guyana is part of that because you have a low coastal zone, and as long as there's rising sea level, as long as there's global warming, we're all vulnerable. So we all have to work together to ensure that the Caribbean and the Pacific and other low-lying coastal states are secure. So UN is critical to that. What we achieved in Paris in last year, 2015, I doubt whether it would have been possible without the United Nations. It's really the midwife of climate change mitigation.
If we could move on from that, I wanted to ask you, I know you've been here since Monday, you've had several bilateral engagements. If you could update us on those engagements that you've had already and those that you intend to have before you conclude this trip.
The main thrust has been to emphasize that Guyana is becoming a green state and that we're looking for cooperation with states which can help in those efforts to mitigate the adverse impact of climate change. Second, of course, Guyana exports certain commodities. I'm looking for markets. And third, and perhaps most important, is the fact that Guyana needs the support of other states to preserve its territorial integrity. So in all of the encounters I've had, I've emphasized those 3 points. We've met with the British, we've met with Zimbabwe, we've met with Namibia, we've met with Liberia, and we will continue having bilateral meetings, but in all of them we've emphasized the importance of those 3 factors. And I would say that they were successful. People understand better the situation of Guyana in relation to Venezuela. They understand the importance of Guyana's role as a green state. That was the topic, the main topic in my presentation to to the General Assembly. And I think that Guyana has done well to come to UN General Assembly at this point in time.
Okay.
Mr. President, I know you were the first head of state to be congratulated by the Secretary General yesterday at a high-level meeting. Do you see Guyana, based on your engagement, have you seen Guyana gaining more recognition internationally as it relates to the country itself as well as the number of issues that we've put into the fore?
I believe that coming to this 71st session of the United Nations General Assembly has significantly enhanced Guyana's image on the world stage. I don't think that there's any state that doesn't know what Guyana stands for now, and they know that we are a green state, they know that we are serious and sincere. They know that we have a serious problem with Venezuela, and they are prepared to support. I think the support for Venezuela is drained away, and this could be seen by the poor attendance at the recent non-aligned movement meeting in Margarita. And it's a sign of discomfort with the line that Venezuela is taking in a lot of areas, but also in terms of its attitude to Guyana. So I would not have liked to miss this meeting of the United Nations General Assembly. Guyana is a world player in terms of environmental issues, and Guyana is regarded as a leading player in the Caribbean, in the Caribbean community, where our headquarters, of course, is located in Georgetown. So I am very confident that our presence here at the United Nations will improve our standing, not only in a diplomatic sense, but also in an economic sense and in a sense of security. So I'm very satisfied with our attendance here. It's a good move.
And just before you, Ariana, in keeping with your discussions on pushing Guyana as a green economy, some citizens are still not convinced of your efforts. I wanted to ask, what are you going to do in the coming months to convince those who are not convinced that you're really serious about this?
Well, this is not a fad. This is not a novelty. This is an important part of a debate which has been taking place in other countries. If we cut our forests down, we will lose some of the benefit of reducing global warming. In fact, Guyana is a net carbon sink. In fact, Guyana is absorbing more carbon than it emits. So other countries need us. We're the lungs. We're part of the lungs of the earth. So maybe the scientific argument may be a little far-fetched for some people, but it is a fact that Guyana helps the industrialized countries to breathe. Guyana, as part of the Guyana Shield, produces a lot of fresh water. So Guyana's biodiversity also is an important factor. We have the habitat for biodiversity. So by having these animals, by having our particular flora and fauna, by having these different coastal zones, not only the coastal zone, but also wetlands, savannas, mountainous areas, forested areas, other countries are investing. Up till last Friday, the Federal Republic of Germany invested several million euros. So I cannot see why Guyanese citizens don't understand the impact of the environment when other countries are paying millions of dollars in order for us to protect our environment. So I don't doubt the sincerity of your argument, but the fact is that Norway, Germany, Denmark, Netherlands understand the value of Guyana's environment, and what we're doing is good for Guyana.
If I take you back to the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy, recently you would have said that Secretary General Ban Ki-moon would have done more than the other Secretary Generals over the years, as it relates to our position on that controversy. He is to demit office in December. How optimistic are you that our case would be put before the ICJ? And if he demits office and that is not done, are you concerned that the process would be delayed further?
Inevitably, it would be delayed if he does not announce a decision. I am confident that over the last year, he has done much to advance our case. This is his 10th year, and if he demits office and simply hands over the controversy to another Secretary General, it will take a long time to develop the momentum. I don't want that to happen because Guyana has been suffering for 50 years, and I would like him to be the Secretary General who brings the controversy. Well, he can't bring it to an end, but he can put it on a course that it will certainly lead to an end. I don't want your children and your grandchildren to be faced with a controversy that has already existed for 50 years. So this is an important time for Guyana. It's an important time for the Secretary General and the United Nations. You see, the agreement that was signed in February 1966, the Geneva Agreement, was meant to bring this controversy to an end. And this is the time when we feel that the controversy could be ended in a peaceful manner under that agreement. So it shows that the United Nations can work. And if we can do that, I think it will enhance the confidence other people have in the United Nations, that a controversy which has been so provocative and problematic over the years could be brought to a peaceful conclusion under the management of the United Nations Secretary General. I think that would be a good farewell present.
Mr. President, sorry, you had a question?
Go ahead, go ahead.
I know Guyana recently appointed a new permanent representative to the UN, and I just wanted to look a little bit into the future and ask you, what is Guyana's agenda here at the UN beyond this session of the General Assembly?
Our main agenda, of course, is to enhance our engagement with the international community in order to advance our national interest. And in particular, that is our territorial security, territorial integrity. That is at the top of our agenda. But secondly, we want to ensure that the economic interests of Guyana are preserved. This is an excellent forum for engaging in other heads of state and government. And as today I met with Liberia, and while we were talking about rice, I meet with Ghana, I'm talking about gold and petroleum production. So this is a unique forum provided by the United Nations in which you have 180 heads of government and heads of state meeting, and it is irreplaceable. The United Nations is irreplaceable in terms of advancing Guyana's interests. So yes, the PR has work to do, the permanent representative has work to do, and we want to ensure that he continues to network so that it facilitates the work of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So rather than my having to go to 12 different countries, I can meet 12 different heads of state in one country.
Okay. Mr. President, as it relates to the Paris Agreement, what direct benefits will Guyana benefit from now that we would have accepted that?
I would say the benefits are indirect because we have signed on to an agreement in which we have committed certain objectives, and when people realize that we are serious about the fulfillment of those objectives, whether they relate to our land or forestry or our human development and other aspects, elimination of poverty and illiteracy. There are 17 SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. When people realize that we are working with those goals, it was easier to build partnerships with them. This is what has happened in the environment. This is what has happened by becoming a green state. People come to us and say, we will help in your protected areas. And one of those areas, means is by increasing the number of protected areas. Right now we have the Chronicle, we have the Shell Beach, we have the Kaitro National Park, but I'm establishing a protected area in every single region. Every region is going to have a protected area, whether it's a swampland, because in the swamps, in the wetlands, you have a particular type of biodiversity. You have frogs, you have snakes, you have birds, which you don't see elsewhere. In the savannas, you have a different set of flora and fauna. In the forested areas, different set of flora and fauna. So taken as a whole, we feel that the agreements we've signed into in Paris, and of course the certificate I received yesterday morning, will enhance Guyana's economy in a real way. It's not ornamental, it's not ceremonial. It is real economic advance. And it's not just, as happened in the past, a narrow definition of LCDS. I think more people are understanding now the complexity of becoming a green state. Not just some abstruse thing about land titling or about reducing climate. It's about the world we live in. People are saying, hey, this is my country. Here's the harp eagle, the biggest eagle in the entire world. Here's the arapaima, the biggest fish in the entire world. People are saying, hey, this is my country. I'm part of it. I own that.
And just to follow up,
I have a follow-up to it.
the Norway Forest Partnership, there has been the Norway Forest Partnership. There has been accusations of secrecy. Can you just clarify that for me?
Accusation
of secrecy in the Norway Forest Partnership.
No, we are managing the Norway agreement, I think, quite admirably. What you may not know is that I have separated the extractive industries, which are now firmly under the Ministry of Natural Resources, from the environmental industries. I am yet to establish the department fully, but it's going to be called the Department of the Environment. So areas like wildlife management, protected areas, will all come under a new department. So the arrangement with Norway, I agree, because it was linked in a ministry which had responsibility both for the extractive industries, mining, forestry, and so on, and the environment. We felt we couldn't put the cat to watch the cheese, and we made that separation. So I'm quite convinced that Norway will be satisfied with the arrangement, and Guyana will be able to benefit more, from having the department separated from the Ministry of Natural Resources. And the Norway agreement is sound. Just as we had an agreement with Germany last Friday, I think these are working well, and they will contribute to the integrity of Guyana's environmental policy.
Thank you.
Onicka asked about the benefits of the Paris Climate Agreement for Guyana. I wanted to ask about the New York Declaration and to ask you to bring it home and explain what exactly does it mean for the movement of people to and from Guyana.
Migration has always been problematic because countries, nation states like to feel that their citizens are unique and they must be protected, their jobs must be protected, their communities must be protected from aliens, a very strange word. But it also means that Guyana is a humane country, and there are areas in the Caribbean, particularly Haiti, as you may know. It means that we now have the obligation to develop a more humane policy. There are people who try to come to Guyana. Guyana is the biggest CARICOM state, and we have to craft a policy that is more tolerant to persons in distress. There are people in distress. We don't want adventurers, we don't want mercenaries, and certainly we don't want terrorists, but we have to be very careful. But at the same time, we don't want to turn people back, when we know that the countries from which they are coming are really in distress. Many Guyanese have left our shores to go to neighboring countries, Brazil, Venezuela, and Suriname. They've gone to the Caribbean. I'm sure you realize that there are thousands of Guyanese all over the Caribbean. In North America, there are hundreds of thousands of Guyanese. Other countries have been very tolerant. They've accepted Guyanese, and I think we too should help to make our country a better place. We're all immigrants. Only the indigenous people in Guyana can claim not to be descended from immigrants. So we shouldn't be afraid of migration, and we shouldn't be afraid of creating a more cosmopolitan society. I've always said that Guyana is a better place because of our diversity.
Sir, Guyana continues to be vigilant against Venezuela's threat to our territorial sovereignty. How would you assess our military at the moment? And our Chief of Staff, Brigadier Phillips, is to demit office pretty soon. Who is going to replace him?
The next chief. No, first of all, the Defense Force, as you know, was established in 1965, just a few months before it became independent. We don't anticipate a war. We anticipate that the force will serve as a deterrent. And we always have said that the ministry or the diplomats, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is our first line of defense. In the world today, we are very confident that the defense of our country, given the fact that the diplomats are the first line, could be backed up by a forceful response by the Guyana Defense Forces. There's a famous saying by Kofi Annan, which suggests that diplomacy is good, but diplomacy backed up by force is better. And there's another famous saying by a German king to the effect that diplomacy without force is like an orchestra without instruments. You know these quotations. So the role of the defense force is not to make war, it is to back up what our diplomats are doing. When Chief of Staff Brigadier Mark Phillips leaves, there's a succession plan, and the next senior officer is going to take his place. So that is smooth, there's a smooth transition, and I'm sure that in weeks to come you'll hear about it. So there's no surprise there.
Thank you, sir.
How about the possible names?
The present Deputy Chief of Staff is Colonel Lewis. You have Colonel Nazrul Hussain, he's also Colonel Kamraj Prasad. There are about half a dozen colonels there. So we have a wide field of choice.
Okay. Has that field been narrowed down, sir?
The Defense Board will meet when I return and make that choice. The Defense Board will make the final decision.
That was a special edition of the Public Interest with President David Granger, who attended the 71st session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York.